Hi everyone. This is our session number 20, I think, or about that, of Language is a Virus, and we're very happy to have here with us Thomas Havlik from Austria, sound poet and performer. And we like to say hi to him, and of course that everyone that's joining for today, especially those who are eating at the same moment. That's great.
Hi, Chris.
So let's start, Thomas. First of all, I would like to know, how did you started working around poetry, sound poetry, performance? How it has been your way into these mixed genres?
Hello, Felipe. Hello, Martin. Hello, everybody. And thank you very much to be here and to participate with this very nice project. I love it. To begin, and with your question, I could say that, like I imagine everybody else of you, I started up and down the historical avant-garde, like the Dadaists, Surrealists, Futurists. Originally, I'm coming from the normal writing in Klammer from on paper, and I loved the confrontation with all this avant-garde. It was like an expression of freedom for me. I loved the confrontation with the Viennese group. I'm from Viennese. And the fluent language as material, it gave me the goosebumps. Two things were decisive for the development of my speech performances as they are today. On the one hand, I have always wanted to recite poetry, like one could say, like a Zen master recites a sutra, my own teeth 10 centimeters in front of my face so that I can see it while I speak, or better said, 20 centimeters. The greatest possible immediacy between artist and recipient, the dissolution of boundaries up to and including the physical experience of poetry, which takes place in the process and which is difficult to achieve with printed texts. I always have been interested in finding ways and means to come close to this. On the other hand, I started using sounds live at a very early stage in order to establish an additional bridge to the audience, first in the form of collaboration with electronic musicians, later until today with self-made audio works, electronic sound poetry, acoustic irritations, and so forth and so forth. I believe that an engagement with sound poetry can, of course, today still lead to remarkable, highly individual works whose goal is not primarily to make audible qualities visible, but which can deal with language as material in a completely natural way and thus be an expression of completely independent acoustic poetics. Sound poetry, in the sense of, as you all know, pre-linguistic utterance of the body, so to speak, speaking of one's own person, is furthermore still a large, quite natural component of many contemporary performance and dance productions, also in modern music. This doesn't mean that I have anything against water glass readings, Which format I choose depends on the event and location. I generally find the live performance of any poetry more advantageous than seeing it printed in front of me. Whether there is a glass of water near the reciter or a beer, it does not matter at first. I'm more concerned with things like body tension, power and presence in the voice and its ability to fill the space to the farthest opposite corner so that the words don't burst like soap bubbles before they reach the listener in the first row. Limp sitting bodies are, from the point of view of performance artists, cautiously expressed, not particularly ideal. But when I say fill the room, I do not necessarily mean volume. One can also whisper to penetrate all corners and angles. I also don't mean that you have to learn everything by heart. And in no way do I mean that I'm concerned with strategies of audio satisfactions, that you have to make them smile or something to touch them. I'm definitely not a poetry slammer. Yet I do hold the microphone as the speaker's best friend, for example. Much would be gained if authors were offered the opportunity to read standing up, or if the live performance were seen as an equally important part of the art form that one practices, and so on, which of course depends entirely of the inner attitude of the author himself, since no one expects him even to be able to read well or even think about the many intermediate possibilities that are available today. Poems or texts that are badly recited, however, are, in my opinion, more similar to any kind of product presentation than to a life experience of any kind whatsoever. Events where you don't necessarily miss anything if you're not there. None of this is new. For at least 100 years, poets have been thinking about it or not. Some believe they write less and that it is at the expense of their work when they travel from festival to festival and explore the possibilities of the stage, while others, for example, attribute the highest work character to recordings of unrepeatable performances. Personally, I see myself belonging more to this, of course, to the second group, independent of water glass or performance. This is so-called schnapps, no water. The more experimental or sound poetic the text, the more it demands to be heard rather than read. What you cannot say is my greatest interest, that which language no longer reaches is a kind of a goal. Only where is it, this thing we call language? Let me do some hacks. Sim, sala, sal, sal, sala, alsa, bim, alsa, sala, sal, sala, sla, kada bra, kada bim, abra, bim, sala, bra, bim, sala, kada, bim, bim, sala, kada, alsa, bim, sala, sla, sala, sla, sala, sal, sala, sal, sala, las, abra, mip, abramip, abracada, abramip, abramip, abracada, abracad, abracada, abradak, abracada, abradaka, abramip, para, abra, sim, raba, arba, sim, daka, imp, daka, bim, daka, imp, daka, bim, daka, imp, daka, bim, daka, kad, mip, kada, mip, Kat mit akta kada taka brna brataka bra para bim barab mi salab mi kada bim akta kat bim barab mi bim bara atka bara sala atka bara sala smi sala ism sal smi sal ism sal smi sal sala sal smi sala ism sal smi sala ism sal smi para sala mi para sala bra para sala ba rababim rabakat para tak. Poems or texts that are badly recited, however, are in my opinion more similar to any kind of product presentation than to a life experience of any kind. You don't necessarily miss anything if you are not there. I would like to make a contribution to making transmedia live poetics, which at first glance may appear to be more performance-based and literary, visible as a literary genre. It seems to me that in the younger German language poetry scene, there is a kind of new pleasure on the stage that is emerging, that is not afraid of contact with other forms such as music, performance, dance, or painting, that is not afraid of experimenting, and that therefore also brings with it, at least in part, a certain willingness to take risks, which I think is very important. There should be more painters or dancers who teach literary writing for the stage. There would be, I think, 3 niches that want to be filled. In order to develop further, it seems that the performance poets today still prefer, or rather are forced to rely on the inspirational exchange with colleagues, which can be of a curse or a blessing at the same time. In any case, the longer one's own breath lasts, the better one gets to know the others who follow a similar path. Colleagues are the poets, authors, artists with whom one associates a respectful basis of trust, are valuable in order not to become blind to one's own work, to be able to allow criticism of oneself, generally speaking, as well as the ability to be happy for others when, for example, they publish a new book or a successful piece, seems to me to be qualities worth of support. Independently of this, also in dealing with all others, the majority, that is, those who do not make art, voila, I can't deny a certain closeness to Fluxus and its conceptual foundations, a closeness to the processual and the integration of one's own life into the creative process. What you cannot say is my greatest interest, that where which language no longer reaches is a kind of goal. Only where is it? This thing we call language. Ah! Ah! When I close my eyes and listen inside myself, I perceive I'm flooded from my toes to my head with language. a language that I did not invent myself, but that nevertheless determines my reality. When meditating on the theme of the origin of language, one gets the idea that it is not the first pre-linguistic sounds, but the movement of the body that establishes the beginning. When the first prehistoric man, even more resembling apes than us city dwellers, showed another man a great fruit lying on the ground while foraging for food, we were presumably not only driven out of the so-called paradise, but at the same moment, the very first poem of this fucking planet was written. Absolutely everything, including the subconscious, interpersonal communication, the political climate, etc. In other words, everything, but also really everything seems to be made up of language. The thought of all the invisible language buzzing through the air around us is overwhelming. Television, radio, cell phones, to name but a few. Add to this, for example, the advertising that accompanies you at every turn on the street, or the entire content of the internet, which is like a huge, freely available reservoir of language. It seems that we as authors only have to access and rely on the fact that the selection of language material and parameters such as rhythm and sound replace the suffering ego, but still create authenticity. Every reading is a language experience and means per se also decoding, making visible different levels of meaning, materiality of language, and constant decoding. The body and its movements are the greatest writing medium. When we observe someone moving or dancing, it is like watching an author writing.
Und der Zange,
Der Tate neue Web. Leiniere, rote Weh.
Leiniere, rote Weh.
Eis kan gåsen.
Eis kan gåsen.
At faden en de benen din.
Seieren
En ontwijnen. Schrempert. Eine Moes. Randeen. Schreiten, Radbeer, Ziel,
Hintersaal, Zeit,
Hadi Isra, Hintersaal, Löhn.
Seit
Adam Emil Erichen Emil Erichen.
Verleo verhirnt und trinkt hegen Ilse Mensch en Ricket en iPod Verleo Eden Arne Reep in der Revente.
Yes. In the
Body present to be a body. Stay absent to be nobody. Stay absent to be nobody. The picture is nobody. Stay absent to be nobody.
Reventer.
To destroy the pictures.
The now,
Destroying to create the picture.
the past,
Die Vergangenheit,
the future,
die Zukunft,
the time,
die Zeit,
the space,
Creating
der
to
Raum,
destroy
the matter,
the
die
word.
Gründe,
Destroying to create the
the
word.
particles,
die Partikel,
emotions,
Gefühle,
the energy,
Energie,
the masses,
Creating to
die
destroy the
Massen,
reaction.
the life,
Destroying to
das
create the
Leben,
reaction.
the existence,
die
the
Existenz,
conditions,
die Konditionen,
Creating to
facts,
destroy
die
the goal.
Fakten,
pictures,
Destroying to
Bilder,
create
the words,
Wörter,
the
the
mind,
goal.
Geist,
the progress,
der
Destroy the
Fortschritt,
word.
the reaction,
die
Destroying
Reaktionen,
to create the word.
the goal,
das Ziel,
the chaos,
das Chaos. So, in contemporary poetry, there is still an important field of tension, namely that the poet listens to himself, that he tries to feel himself down to the nerve fibers in order to sensitively absorb his environment. At the same time, he cannot help but recognize the complete nothingness of each ego in the space-time structure, which puts a relativizing damper on any perceived uniqueness. My artistic work is also located in precisely this area of tension. Thank you, boys.
That's great, Thomas. Thank you very much.
Please restart your audio because if not, you will
Yeah.
listen.
I
Yeah.
had all of you. Thank you very much, Thomas. You know, I had this class the last semester. It was about writing essays, and I was thinking about different kind of experimental essays made with sound, with images, with performance, and I love to see what you just did. It was kind of a manifesto, but there were moments that you like cross a threshold and enter into the performance and went back again, and something that I like very much about it is that lots of us write also academic writings or more serious writings, and sometimes we have very separated the our performances, our artistic work, and when we write about what we're doing, and it's great to see both things mixed, combined. So I wanted to ask you about this this way of putting together your thoughts, your influences, your traditions, and also some writing, some drawings, your voice, recordings, etc. How did you put all of this together in a great way?
Thank you. I also did not much, but a few workshops with at one time with around people that were around 20, and one time with, I don't know, like us, so 40 and on. And with, especially I loved the one with the younger people, and this going on a playable way, and is where you also can transmit what you want to express best, I believe.
That's great.
Yeah, cool.
I was remembering also, for example, some of the radio pieces by Antonin Artaud, or some of his writings, because he's writing like normal, but sometimes the like the language has to explode in a way, and then he comes back again. So I like I like it's like putting a distortion in a guitar, like you are playing and then you put it and then you turn it back. You turn it back.
So like every time when you feel you're getting too serious, you have to disturb yourself. In a way.
Yeah, that's nice. Nice, and also it was. I love that in your poetry, Thomas, the same thing that Felipe kept. You know, like it's difficult to describe what kind of poetry you make, because at the same time you make a narration, recording, drawing, sounds, fiction, autobiography. I don't know. It's really it's amazing, that capacity of surprise us and surprise yourself at the same time. And I don't feel that it's like kind of distraction when you make that kind of you know, connection. It's like kind of more like distortion pedal, like Felipe said, or like a kind of you start in the in the spaceship to go with the speed of light, you know, like kind of like movement of acceleration in another dimension. And how you connect that
Exactly.
because when you put a start and when you put stop to that kind of different state of performing.
I have a few pieces that can act as an island to which I can swim in the moment to feel comfortable when I don't know what is best to follow next. Like rough, but really rough again and again, rough structure only. and everything in the meat in between I'm putting on during the thing. I have the feeling that this is the most powerful way for me, but it also took a time to come this way, hey, your cat, Matt. And because you have to come to feel like this is a mistake when you suddenly don't know which element fits best next or something like that. But the more often you do it, the more comfortable it will be, and the more it gets like an bewusst strategy. And I'm sitting here at my living room in the small apartment, and I'm not able to stamp around and dance around and to be very loud. But
I have one of your drawing, and I love the connection that you make between like word and drawing, you know, really like in a moment when you put like the red color of the drawing, I felt your blood inside, you know. I just felt your blood. I in a moment I knew that's what not your blood was, like a graphite, but in my spirit I was sure it was your blood, and then I just like realized that connection that you make between your blood, your flesh, your drawing, and your poetry, and that's amazing. I have a drawing here out of you, and that the powerful that you make, like how you connect visual with sound. How do you feel it, that connection?
But I believe it's also too remarkable that it's I don't know the English word for bewusst. Can somebody help me?
Bewusst. Jörg.
Yeah, what means bewusst?
Conscious. Conscious, you know, conscious.
Oder absichtlich oder so.
On purpose.
On purpose. Yeah. That is on purpose, not that I'm not trying to be a programmer and work with software for making visuals. That if it comes by itself and a kind of a cooperation with some projection artist, I would do it, of course, and I loved it. But I'm not trying to do this on my own. I forget it already. I'm conscious, trying to not lay on overproduced things. So I don't need visuals that are coming from the computer all the time, and believe more in the power of my trust in the presence of body and doing it live. It's also easier to travel around. You don't need so much techniques. But I really believe it's for me not necessary, and I would go in too much directions in one time. There wouldn't be focus anymore if I would try to be a programmer or something on my own. This is the visual aspect during live events I'm giving away to others.
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel that the last 2 years that because I saw you the last time 3 years ago, sometime I was in your apartment, but so great, and we discussed all along with Jörg also. And I feel that the last 2 years you really like go deep into that connection between poetry and visual poetry. You know,
Mm-hmm.
some of your work that behind you, they're from you, like the kind
Yeah.
they're wonderful. I looked at just like that blue red.
I can send you. I made a book with 160 pieces of them. I can send you. It's.
Can you read it a little bit? That one, please.
I prefer not, but one goal is of course to do it also live, to go there on the stage on a literature reading and stand there with this thing which is only pictures for most of the people and then doing sounds. I'm also made some videos and did it live already. But on the other side, I'm of course not so, all the time searching for just the readable thing. It's sometimes and mostly also just a visual poetry expression, and that really has nothing to. Is it may it be visual or sound? It is for me communication. They are words and expression and everything which comes with it. That has nothing to do with the normal daily words you hear or you can see on anywhere. And so it is a really mind refreshing function that it can have when you're open to it. When you're full of these words or something you can use. If you do it on your own or you're just listening or watching to this, it in a way calms me down, and it is something that is existing outside of any literature between literature surrounding me as a poet also. Martin, you hang.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit. My connection is not good.
Are you in Paris?
So yeah, I'm in Paris, but my connection is just like not too good. I'm trying to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But we can hear you correctly. So.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Then yeah. Thank you for that.
Thomas, how was the process of this book? Did you make like a lot of drawings and then you chose some of them, or did you try to make to create a sequence, or it was random? How was it?
I made about double the pictures that are inside that are concluded, and at the first time it was a really interesting experience, that it felt like there are coming things outside that are some kind of archaic or universal, because the first, I don't know, 50 pics I was establishing this direction. It really felt every single one like I have seen this 100 times before, and only after that, that's only also a little bit the title through. After I went through this, then it became then it started feeling that it's something on my own, and this was really cool and fast. For me, it can be many different things. It can be just visual or asemantic novel, or visual acoustic. You can read loud. It's also, if you are in the right mood, has I believe some narrative elements, but it's not that it's a story from beginning to end. It's no, it's if it is a story, then it's a story of translate from one state into the other, or something like that. And it's brought me also back to this original feeling that I had first with the experimental poetry in general, that it made such a established such a freedom from how should a text be, what shall it be, and what is this, in which history context. It was really a way, and I hope that it's not at the same time like you can do what you could have done everything, but it's conscious, collected, and put together. Yeah.
Did you do it at a certain time of day always, or just before sleep, or just waking up, or was there any regular time or mood, or you did it?
I believe it's this is interesting question, because one could imagine that, for example, after waking up, you could think that there are less borders between conscious and subconscious or something. But I don't believe I did it constantly on a fixed time. I was when I started, I was a few years ago in Europe during the last refugees crisis on a Greek island, and also made videos and stayed there for a month directly in front of the sea. So sea, as we all know, like a big symbol for subconsciousness or something, and made the sound pieces of Varoufakis and Merki and Gaddafi and all of them, and on the other side started to do this visual expressions. And I remember that when I started, it really looked, as I said before, like you have seen it 100 times before. And this is cool because it tells maybe something to experience on my own also. But this wasn't me. But like you said, maybe in general, the staying at this artist house exactly at this time, there was something like doing it directly after waking up or something. It helped for sure.
Please, if anyone can ask questions or make comments to Thomas. You're so quiet today. I feel like when I'm in class. Everyone has a question.
I do welcome to some people who's the first time
Yeah.
there, like Nuno.
Brilliant.
No.
Receive you. Sorry, I was just like put the connection from now directly in Facebook, but I didn't have your number. Then it's cool you're here. And you know,
And also Mark.
yeah, Mark also. Then we invite every Wednesday is like a bar. We have like
Yeah.
we are in the middle of the internet space. And with the space and time are connected. Like
Yeah.
Einstein want to prove that he has a dream. Einstein, a moment to prove that you can connect the space and time in a third moment. You know, like he didn't have internet in that way, but it's like in different moment of the day we are together in the same space. Yeah. Today was Thomas Havlik, who is presenting his work, and like we can introduce you some question like completely freely, and then in some minutes we start to perform all together. That was the spontaneous order that we create, but we can propose another things. And anyway, welcome everyone. I don't know, you want to?
I have a lot of videos on YouTube, I can say, or SoundCloud, or everything. I already asked you for your address, Martin, isn't it? And I will send you this piece of proof, and to all the others I can, if you like to send a PDF or something.
Yeah, and I will include your website here in the chat so everyone can.
Yeah, the website is not really
okay.
Actual.
Yeah, but
maybe but I can on my own maybe try out. Yeah. But do it's okay.
I will.
I'm really like I insist, like I'm really impressed about the your like your drawing, like that put in the ink in paper. You know, that I think that is like that.
Yeah.
Powerful trait and bloody and full of grains. You know, that I just visited with Andres and Bante. We visited the caves in the south of France, and you felt the same feeling. You know, that someone put that kind of, you know, carbon or I don't know, or zinc, or black. I don't know what zinc, but with that kind of intention in the paper. And I really like. I really think that you the last 2 years you make a lot of like powerful energy in that. I don't know if Jörg, maybe who knows better than me in that last 2 years can say something about that kind of like connection between your visual, sound, spirit, flesh. Jörg?
Yeah, I think what is missing in this format here is what I also always find very interesting when Thomas is performing is the drawing, the sound and visual, but also movement, which is here, of course, because we are restricted to these rectangles, and I think that goes together extremely well, because it's, for me, it's I don't know, I know nothing about contemporary dance, but it's a little bit also taking parts of that, and that's, I think it's also, it fits together naturally, because I have the feeling that when Thomas does it, it's all the same in a way, but of course people always want to see it in, I don't know, in their all small drawers and different, they want to have different categories, but Thomas is one of the few who does this who doesn't care about categories, I think. and that's also interesting, because that's, I don't know if it's a question, but I sometimes in my own work I have the feeling that live performance is the ultimate thing, and when you have to publish something, it's always, I don't know, making some lesser art. Is it for you the same? Like the performance is the real work, and if you publish a book, it's a small piece of it.
For me,
Yes.
yeah, it is in a way. Sad but true.
Yeah.
Sounds silly, but it is. So
I mean,
every publication feels a little bit not unnecessary, but not ready, or something like that. But I'm also learning to handle it more and more, because at the beginning I didn't care about this also, and it when you are going around in the literature circumstances, then it sometimes can be a bit the feeling that you don't make it easy for yourself, and you sometimes will be the freak from the reasons why people invite you, or how they are reciprocating yourself, and this, I believe, is when you start a little bit weird, and sometimes it's possible you can feel lonely, and you can make thoughts about yourself, if you are okay or what is going on. But at the end, I believe it's that what stays is stronger if you are constantly besides the track, one could say. Then it's becoming artistic point of view sooner or later, and so you have to trust in yourself. And to bring it down to the earth, it's, for example, of course, not so easy to send some performance concept to a stipendium or something, and you the stipendiums are the next thing that it's sometimes you throw this description and send some texts, but I don't know.
Yeah, there's also, I think there's also no, I don't know, no critique in literary performance or performance that we do. So nobody is really, I don't know, there's no public. Well, the people like it when they see it, but there's, I don't know, you don't, I never read a review of a literary performance.
No, it's no, this is really a niche that doesn't exist, and the people who feels to be present in this poetry scene, in the German speaking surroundings, they also don't do it. They write critics about
books.
Some poems and books, and write about each other, and do like they know everything, and they are the coming life canon or something, but inside they don't take risks. And there is also no DVD or so as in literature magazines. Or the only thing is I know until today is
Docs.
Docs, yes, Docs. And Docs doesn't know anybody in Vienna.
What is Docs?
But us. But I don't want to sound like, I don't know, this. It's very easy to sound cynical or something, and this I don't want to be, because we know that it is like it is, and do it with eyes open, and don't do other things, and so
Yeah, sure.
don't be cynical or something. But
No, it's more maybe of thinking about what could be changed.
no, of course.
Or what would be necessary? Maybe like that. I don't know if I want to change everything. It's a lot of work changing stuff.
Yeah, like you said, some recipients that write some people who better said, some people like I'm trying not to be like Viennese concrete, but some people, you need people that are best get paid for write in a last full way about avant-garde and performance and poetry outside of the book things, and I don't know. I'm
And
I must
about that,
bite my tongue not to say names.
yeah, I would like to ask you, because probably if we ask the same question to all of us in our different countries, probably we'll have the same diagnosis.
Do you make critics on poetry performances?
Yeah, I was thinking about, I've written most about sound poetry recordings than performances, for example, but and some interviews. But the thing is, for example, in my case, I studied literature, so it's very hard to get the knowledge and the tools to analyze a performance, for example. You have to study a lot to understand.
I really believe that you have to also, at least also, have a look outside the literature stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah, of course.
For example, there are many or much more theoretical texts about all this in the dance context.
Exactly, and in
sure.
there are a lot of people writing about performance.
They are all performance,
that's very important. But usually it's difficult to make the connections. But something I would like to ask you is, in my case and the case of some of us who are here, who were trained to interpret, to get a meaning from a poem, from a written and fixed text. Of course, it's different to write, to do something with a performance, or a sound poetry concert, whatever. So I'd like to ask you, or whoever wants to say something about it. In which way could we try to access critically to a sound performance, for example? I like very much what Hans Ulrich Gumbrecht says. He talks about some texts or artworks that you can get a meaning from them, but others like dance or music or some kind of poetry that that is useless to try to interpret something or to make a decodification of a hidden message. So I'm of course more attracted to that way, to just to see what kind of presence that poem, that sound poem, that performance is giving to me. And also, and that's the other problem, how can you share it with people that were not present at the performance? It's very difficult to, if you want to share your reading of a poem, you can write it down and say, hey, take a look at this. But of course, it's more difficult if the people who are reading didn't had access to that performance, or indirectly. So this is a very big and an open question. I'm thinking always about that. But how do you envision some kind of different critic approach to this kind of stuff we're doing?
And also, I think was beautiful the question of Jörg about what is importance of the book, or in the poetic way. You know, it's a big importance. So I refer book or via vinyl, or I don't know, of the objects of
and fixation of that.
and the level with the live act, you know, the performance when you're in that moment, you're that just like one unique moment. I don't know. It's an open question. It's really, really wonderful to touch about it, George, because like also you make a lot of performance, and also you publish things, and at the beginning, Felipe said, like, how's the connection between you, George, and
me,
Thomas? How you work together, because you had that review, wonderful review. Well, Vulcan, how is it called? Well, with some of here, we go there with Andres, we publish something together, like Mortonadi, Felipe. How you like construct that movement that I feel you have in Vienna, like you both know between like publishing, performing, or now with COVID it's like less performing, but how is your way of work, middle, you know, if you have one?
I'm looking for a link.
Well, to say something about the movement, it's nice that you say there's a movement, because I don't have the feeling I have the feeling it's only a few people, like me, Thomas, and maybe 3, 5, 4, 6, 7 more. So it's
like old movements.
yeah, but it's, I don't know, we don't have a program or a manifesto. It's just people interested in similar things, sometimes working together, going to the performances, maybe performing together, but it's not that we don't, I don't know, it would be nice, but also I don't have the feeling that, I don't know, I don't want to be the new surrealists or the new Dadaists or the new lettrists. It seems so like
the new Vienna group.
No, I don't want to be. I don't know. It feels so ancient.
Please don't get naked.
Thing. I don't want to be like that.
What you don't want to talk about it?
I want to talk about everything, but I don't want to be in a new avant-garde boys club. It feels a little bit boring.
Yeah. But this is also only maybe this is only the label. When but what happens when you don't label it and just
Yeah, but I also think I don't know. I enjoy.
But nobody goes around and says from it himself he's an avant-garde guy.
No, there are some people, but I enjoy diversity and chaos and stuff, and new people coming. I don't know, people disappearing, new people coming, changing. I don't know their ideas. So this whole movement thing, I don't know. What do you think, Thomas? Do you think we have a movement?
We both.
All right. No, we both. Yes. We move.
We move. Yeah, we can move. we feel like we move.
It's very tricky, isn't it? Because the moment the avant-garde has a movement, it becomes avant-garded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that's a problem. You're right.
So it's quite tricky. But Thomas, I wanted to ask. This is maybe a different topic or something, but getting back to what you said near the beginning of how you wanted to create words or sounds or whatever that hadn't been done before, and looking at your visual work, it looks like there's a similar thing. You try and go against regularity. You know, it's like something's happening here, you don't do another one, you do something differently. Perhaps in your movement, which I haven't seen, it's the same thing. And then if I take that idea, which you practice and others, I guess, practice, and with the other idea, which was mentioned about performance, in a way, a performance, you could say it's freer or it's more real or whatever terms you want to use, but it's still frozen. You are doing one thing in a certain moment. And I just want to ask you a question. Have you ever thought of doing a performance of, let's say, an hour where you do the same piece? Let's say you interpreted one of your images over and over and over again. The idea that, you know, every time you look at it, you can say something different. And so there's no possibility of anything really being frozen.
No. Yes, I'm sure that if you make this repetition trying, that every time you will get some other points of view and some other views, and also when you hear something, the same piece, when it exists as MP3, also when it exists as MP3 or something, when you hear it, then you hear it today and tomorrow totally different. This also makes surely is very subjective, for example. Yeah.
Thomas, I wanted to ask you about presence, because you mentioned presence a lot in the different things that you're doing. You said something in your manifesto that was so powerful, that was basically that language is used for everything but poetry. And I thought that blew my mind, because it was a redefinition of what poetry is and what language is. And I took that, like, with everything that you're saying about taking away hierarchy, taking away who's history and who's not, what's new and what's not. It's like every moment is the moment, especially in performance. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that idea that language is used for everything but poetry, in some kind of way. In a way, you answered that already. But I love this idea of like what is and is not supposed to be, and how that wraps into presence for you.
For this, yeah, I'm sure there are some things you can try out to make. I don't know the English so good. I'm sure you can try to learn, or you can learn to be more and more in the presence at the stage, for example. This I'm sure. But it's also work. It's not work. It's not time. You are working on a new poetry on the paper. It's really performance work, and you find it historical from, I don't know, like I said, this Zen people or Buddhist in the cliché, or every sounds nearly a little bit esoteric when you say the body also has an deeply is consisting of a deeply widespread part of language, and I worked a lot near at this, with mental handicapped people, for example, who are not able to speak, and or some guy who don't see and don't hear and don't speak all the three things together. And I also but I made the experience that also he could communicate very fine, and this research and the things you are stumbling upon during daily life all come together in your. Now I'm sounding myself. They're all coming together at the stage, and Recordings of these moments, as I said, are also a kind of work, a publication, for example, for me to shift the focus on the point of view that also live recordings are works, little works on their own. This all the language is not poetry. Yeah. This visual is it? Shall it be visual or sound poetry? It remembers me of language, of communication at this, but I'm deeply inside what consists me, but I didn't invent. And during the day, normal consciousness, I'm bumped with speakings or advertisings or political speeches, or when you read comments in the newspapers or something. The moment it stands there, or the moment you touch it, it means something and so much more than it really means. And to get a freedom from from this bombardment of language all the time, all this triggering and pushing in directions that you didn't have in the mind the moment before. Has to bring it down as grounded I am able. Nothing to do with this, and this is also, and to experience this moment when you feel it independently. It's like a little bit cocoon around yourself. I'm not getting with normal writing or any art otherwise for myself. This is my and that's also the point where it comes back from its horse of arts and into the real life in a way.
It's really beautiful. It's very you're trusting yourself, and that makes us trust us because we're seeing you in the world. It's really fantastic.
Thank you. Cool.
I was intrigued of that question between the object and the performance. I don't like the word performance. I never like it. Like it's a kind of it's like economics word, performer.
No.
I don't know how to call it, but live poetry in a moment. That when you are like in front of the void and you have to produce something, same as is it writing or not. How Jörg said already, like is the publishing a little part of that. I remember that play of word of James Joyce when he say like liter, like liter literature, like liter, like in poubelle, basura, and I can retake it like publication, like put something into the liter. And that I how it feel that kind of difference between that fixed and how in alchemy, solve coagula, fix and go make ether.
Remembering that Ida Hintze, one Viennese poet that opened the Viennese poetry school and brought Chopin and Ginsberg and all these people as teachers to Vienna. But anyway, this guy Ida Hintze had written down, nowadays he's dead already, sorrily, but I remember he had written down as sevenfold poetics and blah blah blah. One part of it was the teaching. So maybe it, what you said, fits at this at this Ebene, in this way, that this doing publications is manifesting instruments that give you the possibility to bring this poetic poetic side, to bring you this extra poetic side of sharing. And you know what I mean?
Maybe make like independent of you, you know, like when you publish something, it takes the own life and can be like read it in another, not depends anymore of your body in a way of your, you know, the
also
book, the object like is go like beside of you and make a separation, like a kind of cut up between you, yourself and the objects, you know, and it could be like adopted for another one. That is really beautiful. And at the same time, I feel that in your work you integrate that kind of publication in the same movement of your like living, acting, poetic life, and that is fantastic. You know, not like I would talk with Andres the other day, like the people from letters, you know, like literature letters people who like they like would publish the book or like and only all in the writing will be like everything fixed, you know, something that is beautiful in alchemy, because something you fix. You have to fix
yeah, something that isn't possible in the life either, and one can say.
And how about one
fix something? It's always processing. But it's a cliche 100, but it sounds very nice.
And
it is interesting though. It's very difficult to make a distinction. Ultimately, it's like we're all having slightly trouble making a real distinction between something that is, let's say, published or frozen on the page or even frozen in recording, and something that's happening live. Maybe only thing we can say is something actually is of the moment or a happening, or it's because if someone gives me a book, when I read it, that's a happening inside me at that moment. It's alive at that moment.
Yes.
So it's like, how do you really distinguish these things? I don't really know. I just throw that out.
I follow you. I think it's like maybe some like the same difference between video and photo. You know, a picture or a video. You know, like sometimes you want to keep a picture because it's like have your moment of sometimes have to have a video. But anyway, the difference is like in book you have not sound sometimes. You know, that I think we have to reinvent in the books of the future in a way, you know, like I never ever imagined to publish
of
book.
love.
Yeah, you have a lot of like the Chinese like postal card, and you open and you make a poem, you know. But anyway, I just, that is what I didn't publish nothing some 10 years ago, because I cannot publish nothing without sound in a way, and that is for me. But I think that moment of the object, you know, like we work with Joaquin Montesi for a new record and vinyl, and anyway, but I love like how you pass from that. I don't know if you have, Thomas, maybe a preference for some part of your work, more you love more the sound or the draw or the live or the, I don't know, or the
It depends on the time, I, but I'm coming from the writing or something like in the youth writing bad poems and bad stories like everybody else, but um, then developed to whom I am today, and it means that the writing itself with words means something for me. Maybe I have to close the book as some lyric book or something, and then let's see what happens. But it's um, eating on me inside, of course. And I believe if I pull it out one and for all time, then I feel better later.
I propose you guys like that we find a cave, like, and then we go all together and fix some poem, like a sound
Yeah.
poem with all the effects in a cave. Like we have to find one. At least maybe to the end of the
You've been in the
year.
cave.
Yeah. George has a cave, of course. George, you have a cave? No.
No, I don't have a cave.
No, we have a cave in Portugal to paint inside.
Yeah,
No.
A cave to paint inside.
I don't have a cave, but I'm actually in my whole República. It's sort of a frat house, but it's quite different from the ones in the United States. And it's a very big and old house. And all the space below the living room in the first floor is empty, and people fit inside the space. So that would be an interesting place to be used as a cave.
But cave is for I don't know, for to persevere for I don't know 10,000 years. That's the reason why we need a cave.
Yeah, for the next 10,000 years, and then we go out and see.
No, we are dead then, but then they discover I don't know the ancient
Yeah, we are
poetry
the
of the
ancient
of,
then.
of the age of information technology, and then they I don't know put it into a museum.
Yeah, and also internet has the. I think that the time that we have we think with internet will spread. How you say in English, the the capacity of life of internet like 200 years, not more than that. And caves like at least 10,000 years. The rock, the stone, the real stone inside of the earth is the most security place to art that we know in the entire universe.
Yeah, it's for caves are for arts and atomic waste.
Mm.
Yeah, atomic waste. Yeah, of course we can make atomic waste. A neutrino capture and a sound studio, evidently. We can invite Lee Scratch Perry to make some mix with us. I don't know. Miriam, do you know a cave like Altamira in Spain or something like that?
Me?
If you allow me, York was speaking about a museum, and I was reminding, well, for those of you who don't know me, thank you for having me, first of all. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So thank you for having me and for the invitation. I've done my PhD on sound poetry. I've called it Vox Ex Machina, sound poetry in the 21st century. I've done it in Coimbra. And I was also a member of the radio show, which some of you know, which was called Hipoglot. And we've interviewed quite a number of people. And I can't remember who it was, but at a certain point, he was talking about the relation between, well, society in general and other forms of art and literature. And he was telling me that there was no museum for literature, like there were for contemporary arts. So what it seems to me, and from some of the things that you've been speaking about, is that we are still, and by we mean society as a whole, very strongly connected to a certain type of idea of what literature is so we go to school and someone puts a book in front of you and they tell you, okay, this is literature. So you grow up thinking that literature is only the things that come up in the books. And there are many other forms of literary artifacts, as I call them, or objects or expressions. Um, there was a time when I came up with this concept, which I mean, well abandoned, which is called the LSDs. And the LSDs were the literary sound disruptors, which is what people use in performance to produce effects over text. And so I think most of what these live literary experiences are doing is using the LSDs, literary sound disruptors, which produce several sorts of effects. I remember that, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I was doing this performance night here in Coimbra, and the show had two very different parts. The first part had some colleagues of mine reading poetry, you know, the classic thing with a book in the hand and just reading. And the second part, I was doing it with a friend and colleague of mine, Bruno Ministro, and we had electronic media, we had all sorts of things going on. And a couple of days later, there was this small piece of news in a newspaper, and we were labeled as experimental electronics, something of the sort. So people are unable to understand that literature can be different. It doesn't have to be in the books. It doesn't have to be printed. Uh, Literature can take many, many, many forms.
Exactly. I guess I talked a little about the same you're saying right now, that in Chile there are funds for visual arts, for producing movies, for music, for theater, whatever. But there's no fund for literature. The fund is for book and reading.
Really?
So, yeah, exactly. So if you try to apply to, I mean, not only a sound poetry CD, but also, I don't know, collecting oral literature or oral popular literature, which is great in Chile, as the same in other parts of Latin America, for example. It's like it doesn't exist. Or I don't know. I mean, when you apply, you just have to put a number of pages of what you will write, etc. So, or even if you want to make like a hypertext novel, for example, it doesn't count also. So yeah, I always joke it's like you have a funding for vinyls or a funding for cassettes exclusively. I mean, it would be great, of course, but it's an institutional view that is very specific. So, well,
And
I think
for
it's related to
oral literature was considered to be something minor in
yeah, of course, and it's more like an anthropological concept, or like a something that you have to save, like it has like an historic or folkloric importance,
yeah,
more than a value in itself. And in fact, lots of people that study oral literature or poetry from indigenous communities usually come more from anthropology or history than literature, for example. It is changing, of course, but it is the common perspective.
By the way, there's a museum for literature in Vienna.
Yeah.
But it's not interesting.
I haven't been there once.
Yeah, well, I've been there, but it's historic. Well, it's about also 20th century literature, but it's I don't know, showing stuff from famous
manuscripts.
Manuscripts and pictures and I don't know, the table of Schnitzel and all this shit.
Exactly. It's like in Chile, the houses of Neruda, for example, are visited by tourists, and it's full of his objects. I mean, he was a very good collector of objects. He was best at that than writing poetry, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's there are beautiful houses, but I mean, it's not interesting. I don't remember. any interesting visit to a poet's house or a writer house. I think so.
Well, I've been in Istanbul to, what's it called? I forgot. I will remember.
I was at the in Zurich at the Cabaret Voltaire when there was the 100-year celebrations, and this was also in a different way a little bit stupid, because there were the Dadaists everywhere, and on big advertising signs on the streets, and like in Vienna, the Mozartkugel or the Lipizzaner, they made advertising with the for this small season with the Dadaists. I mean, I saw some pretty cool to see one time stuff from them, but yeah, it's not so much throwing you off your feet when you are standing in front of the jacket, or it's more the aura that you are producing yourself with the situation of meeting this stuff that gives them something.
I remember the name of the museum in Istanbul. It's Orhan Pamuk's Museum of Innocence. I don't know if you know that. It's part of his book.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's interesting because it exhibits the artifacts that are in the book. So it's a museum for objects that appear in the book, which is kind of nice. But yeah, it's more like a museum for a novel, actually, which is kind of crazy.
It's interesting to think of Sebald in this way, because in his books he has the objects in the book, like as photos or.
Yeah, you could make a perfect escape room of this museum.
I always wanted to create an amusement park. Well, Banksy did it kind of, but I would do a different one, but it would be nice.
Beautiful. Outside,
no one together. Sound poetry world or something.
Sound painting game poetry.
Yeah, next year, next year, everybody will be able to do performances again or something abroad.
I hope.
How is it in Chile for you? Because there was a time when I read about Chile and the Austrian daily newspaper, and I asked myself why, especially about Chile. Is there a reason? Was it really hard or something?
Yeah, there was this revolution in October last year. Like lots of people marching in the streets and protesting, and it was going through until March. But then with the virus, it ended. But I think the virus is getting a little slower now, so we have been able to get out a little again. But I think that in this October, people will go on the streets. I mean, for the anniversary, people will go on the streets, and it will be very crazy. But it was very good because it obliged the politics to make some changes. But there was a lot of repression, people dead. Hundreds of people got blind because the cops were firing to the people. It was
really
horrible. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah. The repression was absolutely absurd. So yeah, it's been a really heavy.
Chile is the most repressive country in the world,
Yeah.
semi-poetry sometimes. You know, the
Yes.
people from letters in the poetry in Chile. Wow. I think that because it's like a kind of really seismic. It's the end of the world. You have no no neighbors around. The next neighbor is Australia in the opposite ocean.
like us.
Yeah, you have like a cordillera, you know, the mountain of 6,000 meters around. It's really extreme, and every time, like
really extreme,
6 times a day, you have the earth is moving.
Yeah. You
like
feel the vibrations of the other.
The discotheque of the black hole, you know. Wow! And look, every people is like a little bit afraid that everyone, like, you have tsunami, you have all the catastrophe in the world you have there. You have capitalism stream. Completely, it's like it's like hell in a way in Chile. At the same time, that bring you that kind of like seismic force.
And maybe one could believe that many percent of everybody, of all the people in the world, would say it about their own country, but there are different hells.
Yeah, of course. I thought, but just like I think the seismic, because I know that in the you know, the groups you have, when you live in Europe, you don't have like a seismic movement, but when you're in Chile, you have every time a seismic. I don't know, like today was like a 7-degree, Felipe, in the north of Chile, like in a fail. Yeah, but you forget, you know, because like, of course you have the liberalism is worse, the capitalism is worse, is worse, then the earthquakes is not so not so important, but you feel it, you know, in that kind of poetry. And if that energy, if you take that energy from the ground and you can put to the explosion of heaven, like it's like you same when you put the ink in the paper, when you put the red dot to express themselves, like cosmos. Sorry.
I'm totally with you.
Andres, what do you think about the caves and Chile and the situation of today? We was together like a week ago. Like, it seems like 1,000 years. With Andres,
I didn't come out of the cave. I'm still in the cave.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the things you can see down there, and the similarities with Thomas' art, because as he said at the beginning, these drawings or writings, or asthemic or whatever you call it, have this quality that you recognize. That it's not, well, they are not pictures really. They say something, even if we can translate it, and they feel very universal in a way, just like cave paintings that are quite similar in Indonesia and in France and other. So yeah, but about Chile, I don't know really. I know there was a big. We call them tremors, but they are actually earthquakes. There was one today in the north. I believe there's some damage. Hope there's no dead people. But yeah, it's like in a constant tremor since last October. Personal, collective, social, and all sorts. In a way, maybe that's what. Well, it's similar to Japan in terms of tremors. But yeah, I mean, we need to capture that energy. I can't because I'm not in Chile right now. But yeah, something needs to be done with the energy of the earth, at least.
It seems like all the more volcanic place, and like the Vesuvio, no? In the what is the name of that city who is like under the dust near of Vesuvio volcano in Italy?
Pompeii.
Pompeii?
Pompeii, yeah, Pompeii and Herculaneum, you know. I think that just before they were completely covered by the dust and the explosion, they produced the best wine in the world, the best poetry in the world, the best like erotic stuff. I don't, but but the earth is like moving around, and that is quite like really amazing that not many people talk about it. It's like the seismic movement in the earth was a consecutive reduction of intensity during the confinement, the world confinement. Like it reduced your level like of like 300%. That is mean that the earth reacts about our you know our action, our production, our history. No, we're not making history, we're making history, and then we are hysterical people, and Earth tried to like they don't. Wow, please, come on, hysterical poets.
Hysterical poets.
Oracular. Oracular. And what is the when is the next Wellbunk magazine number? No, do you have a
number?
No, no, sorry, my English was fine. I love like Thomas because every time that I talk to you and I listen to you, I heard at least six language that I never heard in my life. the trouble between your English, the Austrian, the German, the sound, the movement. Wow, I really perceive extraterrestrial language and microscopic. That is, yeah. Thank you to be today. Right. No, I just asked about the review, your sound poetry review. What do you plan about it? I don't know. George is still there. No, he's running away.
No, I'm still there. But actually, that's a topic we don't talk about.
What?
About Hüllkurven.
There's who?
Of course.
Nothing to be said about it in public.
Perfect. No. Then let's start to perform now.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. Yeah.
So, Thomas, can you give us our one?
Can you set the tone?
Yeah.
So, okay. But you mean I'm mute?
No.
There will also be a start.
I'll watch you.
Well,
the only fundamental absolute tone, the silence, but that it doesn't exist, because all the
what?
There's no silence.
Everything. Sim sala sala arisa bim arisa sala kada bim
not interesting literature. Interesting museum for literature. Full of not abject museum. stupid objects of interesting using, not literature for not interesting people, not people interested museum for not interesting literature, not mission, not literature, not objects, not is not interesting, not interesting, not interesting, not interest or literature, literature.
Wow. Could you follow all those directions? Now we're going to play a sequence. We'll tell a little story next. Sound which will help listen for a glass. Oh, he knocked the glass. What happened? Harry Weston wait. Early in the morning. Sure enough. Next. What happened next? What happened next? What happened next?
Okay. Appetit. Okay.
Isn't it a drink?
Not interesting. Literature for not interesting. Museums for not interesting.
Nothing to see.
People for not interesting.
Nothing to
Objects
see.
interesting.
Nothing to see.
Stuff of not museums of not literature. Not. I've seen all the
Very nice. Thank you. Hey.
Thank you, Thomas. It's lovely.
Very.
Every time we arrive to silence in a moment. Seems like impossible, but we arrive.
Yes.
Invisibility and silence. I'll see you next Wednesday, or do you want to make an afternoon? I have to go.
Yeah, me also.
Me also.
Thank you, everybody, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think maybe possibly next Wednesday we have Eki Fiedler confirmed in the week, and then
Who did you say?
people. Yeah, we'll announce you that soon. A big hug for all of you, and see you next Wednesday.
see you.
Ciao, lindos.
Bye.
Thank
you.
Bye.
Maybe we'll cut it, then you can stay, huh? If you want to. The after bar is open for you. I just